Welcome to the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks Show, a series designed to give you insight into the world of self-publishing and marketing your books. Featuring your hosts, Shannon, the author behind the pen name S.C. Huston, Ben Pick, and Jamie, writing under the pen name J.M. Chaley. Join us several times each month when we interview authors about their self-publishing and marketing journeys, talk to industry leaders, and discuss books about writing, self-publishing, and marketing. Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon, writing under the pen name of S.C. Huston, a fantasy romance author with a passion for writing about broken characters who face adversity to become better versions of themselves. And there may or may not be a dragon, but there's always love to find. And as of this recording, I am in the middle of my Kickstarter. But when this comes out, my Kickstarter will have been done for right about a month. I probably still will be in the fulfillment period. However, Kickstarter does now have the ability to enable late pledges. So if you're still wanting to get a copy of anything that's in the Kickstarter, everything is still going to be available except for one item. And that's like my favorite item that I'm most excited for, which is called Faded Adventures Story Mail. So it's 6 months of getting like packages. They're all flat packages, but like letters and news sheets. And it's set in my same world. So it's an epic fantasy mystery romance. And it's interactive online. So you can choose one of 4 characters to be as you go through this mystery, and you'll get different clues depending on which character you are. And like I said, it's interactive. There's also a Discord where people can go in there and they can share their clues and stuff to see if they can figure it out. But regardless, if you don't figure out the mystery, it's all right, because you'll get told the you know, what it is at the very end of the 6 months. You'll know what the mystery is. But I do want to make that like for cohorts. So like people, when they're in the Discord, they're talking with each other and not like people just coming in at different points. So that's the only thing that's not going to be still available, but everything else will still be available until I'm ready to publish it directly on my website. And then I'll go to retail platforms a couple months after that. Those dates are not chosen yet. It's going to be based on when my fulfillment ends. So I'm looking forward to that. But today we are doing a special off-season episode, and I'm joined by Elaine, who has done several YouTube videos on her YouTube channel talking about self-publishing books on a shoestring budget. And this is a concept I heard from her a couple of years ago. It started a few years ago. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I really love that idea. And I've been wanting to bring her on the podcast to talk about all these different strategies. So I'm excited to have the chance to talk to her, and that way she can share her knowledge with everyone. And let me introduce Elaine now. Elaine Canyon writes romantasy comedies because you shouldn't have to choose between a romantasy and a rom-com. Her books features romances in bright fantasy worlds with characters that are sure to leave you laughing. She writes closed-door romances with swoony kisses and heart-melting chemistry, giving you all the romance and no explicit scenes. Elaine lives in the mountains of central Utah with her husband and children. When she's not writing, you can find her in the mountains, hiking, rock climbing, and skiing with her family. And I can attest that her fantasy romance or romantasy are funny. I love the books. They're very funny, which I can't write funny. So I'm always so just blown away by people who can do this. And I really wish I had that skill, but it's nice to read it in other people's stories. And I truly love listening or reading. I did listen to one book because you sent me the audiobook, I think. And I started listening to one, and the other one I read. So welcome, Elaine. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about you? Like, what do you publish? I mean, we've already talked about the romantasy, but if you want to go into a little more specifics and anything else you want the audience to know.
Yeah. So I, like Shannon said, I'm Elaine. We're old friends. We've been playing this game for a while together. And yeah, like my bio says, I write romantasy comedies. So my romantasies range from cozy to stabby, but they're always lighthearted, and they're always meant to leave you walking away happy and with that really cozy feeling of, oh, the world is good. Because I like to think that there is good in this world.
Yes.
But yeah, and then I also run a YouTube channel where we're going to get into this a little bit as we talk more about self-publishing on a shoestring budget, but it takes a lot of time to do both. Yes. And so the YouTube channel gets updated as I have time. And I talk about self-publishing on a shoestring budget. I talk about cover design, which plays into self-publishing on a shoestring budget. And then I also talk about discovery writing, because I am a far end of the spectrum pantser. So yeah. I write almost as much of a discovery writer as Dean Wesley Smith does. If you've ever read Writing into the Dark, his process and my process aren't that far apart.
I think of his book, but I haven't read it yet.
It's a really good read. I like it a lot. If you are a discovery writer, it's fantastic. If you're an intuitive writer, it's also really great. Has wonderful tips, and it made me feel a little bit less like I was different. Yeah, for not having an outline, and for outlines killing my book.
Yeah, and I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know if you have faced this, but whenever I've gone to different interviews or channels on YouTube and whatnot, and I'll say I'm a discovery writer, intuitive writer, and they're like, oh, I couldn't do do it without outline. And, if you do an outline, you could do it so much faster. I'm like, no.
Yeah, if I write it, I've had people say that to me before. If you'll just outline, you'll write faster. And I'm like, no, if I outline it, the book doesn't get done.
Yes, it doesn't get done.
There's no speed issue here. It is the book just doesn't happen.
Yeah. There's only one book I pushed myself to finish it, and that was my debut. And I did that as an outline. I pushed myself to finish it because I wanted to get it out there. And then for my second book in the trilogy, I tried to outline again, and I just kept getting frustrated because I would start writing a story and it'd go off somewhere else and like go back and change my outline. And I don't know how many times I changed my outline. So this is ridiculous.
Yeah. You spend more time changing the outline than you do actually writing the book.
Yes. And I can write a book pretty fast, to be honest, because even though I don't plan or outline or anything like that, I do think about things in my head for a really long time. So when I sit down and I write, a lot of it just comes out. So
exactly.
All right. Enough about that. But yeah, I love the idea that we're discovery writers. And yeah, you have lots of great information about that on your YouTube channel. You also have a YouTube channel for your readers, right?
I do. So that one's called Elaine Canyon Books. So the first one is just Elaine Canyon. You find that. And then Elaine Canyon Books is where I'm slowly putting audiobooks up. So I have one audiobook up right now. It's my short story, Love in a Bit of Disorder. And that is super cozy. It's ranch hands in a fantasy world. And so it's a workplace romance. It's got griffins and pegasuses. It's lovely. And I had so much fun narrating it. Again, we're going to get into this. Shoestring budget means that you are investing time, and audiobooks take time.
Yes. And actually, we're going to bring you back on the podcast in next season, the season where we at? We're in season 6. So season 7, we're bringing you on to talk about, interview you as an author and your writing process and all that, and what you do. So we'll learn a little bit more about that. And I wanted to focus on audiobooks in that episode.
Absolutely.
So yeah, definitely. All right. So what inspired you to create the Self-Publishing on a Shoestring Budget series?
So that is how I've been publishing. When I started this, I had almost nothing to invest, and everything that I did have to invest, I knew where I wanted it to go already. So I didn't have the money to say, oh, well, I'll also do this, or, oh, well, I'll also do that. It had to be an investment of time more than cash. And as I was figuring all of this out, I wanted to be able to share that, because there's not a whole lot of information about it. And there's not a whole lot of people that encourage it. Support it. It's not a pathway that the publishing industry, whether traditional or indie, really validates. And I know there are a lot of us who are doing it, and I kind of hated that we were all sort of doing it under the radar of like, oh, well, I'm not going to mention that this is the choice I'm making. I'm just going to kind of go along. And so I wanted a place to say, hey, this is okay. You can do this. Yeah. This is a valid way to go about it.
And I do think it's probably because, especially when first self-publishing first started happening, and people, they didn't have money and they just slapped up books and didn't worry about editing or anything like that. And that kind of set a bad tone for self-publishing just in general. So
yeah, definitely.
People want to know you're spending money to make the best book, but it's hard to spend money making the best book if you're not making money.
Right. Well, and going into debt for a book is hard, because this is an industry that's very unforgiving. And if the book doesn't hit perfectly to make you back all of that cash, then how do you justify going into debt again to get another book going?
Yeah, you hit me right in the heart there.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. Because my first series, I did all the things you're supposed to do. I paid for an editor, and my editor altogether for all 3 books, like $2,500. And I'm close. I'm just under $4,000 in debt. I make money off of it. Like just this month, I did have people buy 4 books in that series. So I'm like, when someone bought the second book and a third book, so they must have the first book already. And then, so it's like, okay, that's cool. I made some money on this series this month, which I do about every other month, make some money off of it. But at the rate that I'm going, I'm going to be 83 before I pay it off, that $4,000 debt I have. And I'm like, I can't continue publishing like this. I just can't. So yeah. You hit me there. Like, yes, that's me. So what about you? Can you share your personal experiences with self-publishing and how that influenced the development of the series? I think you kind of talked already, but
so I started publishing in February of 2024, and I put my first book out. And like I said, I didn't have the cash to put a ton of stuff into it. Now I have a benefit in that I am a graphic designer. So I worked in logo design. I worked in the tech industry, which didn't necessarily benefit me when I came into trying to create my own covers. But it did benefit me in that I understood design, and I understood what would make an appealing looking image. So the original cover for Love Ships and Sea Serpents, I drew it. And it took me about 80 hours to draw that cover, maybe a little bit more. It took a long time. but it was an appealing enough cover that I got people to look at the book, and I got people to start downloading the book and paying attention to it. And so that made a big difference in like getting me going. Now, looking back on it, I took another comp title, like I based my cover off of another comp title, and that comp title, she actually ended up shifting all of her covers because the trend did not follow what she was doing. And so I ended up with a cover that was out of trend. Which is part of why I had to go back and fix it. But what it did do was it got me started and it got me going. And then I realized as I was doing all of this self-publishing work of making sure that I had the right cover, making sure that the book was edited well, all of that stuff on a shoestring budget, that there was very little information out there to tell me how to keep going on this path. Everyone kept saying, well, now the step is spend $2,500. Now the step is start doing Amazon ads and be willing to lose $200 to $300 before they start working. Like that's what all of the advice was. And I was like, no, I don't have that. It was really important to me to own my ISBNs. So I saved up a ton of money and I bought the 100 pack of ISBNs. And that was kind of my only investment that I could do at the very start, was to own my ISBN. That was all I could do. And so being able to tell other people, hey, I'm figuring this out. You don't have to listen to the person who crushes your dreams when they say, well, if you want to self-publish a book, you need to be able to spend $2,500 on an edit. And then you sit there and you feel like, well, I'm never going to self-publish a book because I can't justify taking $2,500 away from my family.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I was at after I finished publishing my first series and realized I didn't understand what it meant to write a book to market. Not that I don't think I would ever fall like right into that right perfect niche of like, here's the market, here's what I'm going to write. Cause I just don't think that my brain works that way. But which is why I ended up writing what I did, because I thought I got in touch with my girlfriend from college and she said, you know, what was popular was Fae. Well, I found out the origin of Fae was the Irish mythology. So I wrote Irish mythology, not realizing there is no genre niche or category on Amazon for Irish mythology. So I really didn't understand how all that worked. But I was there. I was like, okay, I'm not publishing anymore. I'm not gonna stop writing. I love writing. That's like part of my soul. But I was like, I can't continue publishing like this, you know? So I had to come up with something different.
Exactly.
So what do you think are like the most critical areas? I know you've talked about the book cover already, but where can new authors minimize costs without compromising quality?
So there's two places for this. I had been writing before I started publishing. I wrote in fan fiction for 7 years. I got my first 1 million words in fan fiction. So I think one of the first places to start is get words out. If you want to be able to cut down on the need for an editor, get really good at writing stories. I honestly believe that with how good AI is, that if you have the beta readers surrounding you of people who are authors, of people who are readers, and that you have written enough stories, not necessarily published stories, but you've written enough stories that if you can have all of that, the need for a human developmental editor is slowly dropping. So I had 7 years of writing underneath me for fan fiction. I spent 2 years writing original stories before publishing them because when I decided to start self-publishing, I read that having books ready to publish was beneficial. I've shifted how I'm doing that now because one of the things you'll learn if you choose to do that is I wrote 3 books. I wrote 4 books. One of them I won't publish because that was really just me dealing with grief. But the other 3 I wrote, and I wrote, it's a trilogy. I wrote them consecutively. And then I was doing more research on self-publishing and someone said, you should have a prequel that you can offer for free so that way readers can get into it. And that's what Love, Ships, and Sea Serpents is. I wrote that last and I love it. I love where it's at. And then I went back to Love, Mystique, and Mermaids, which the Kickstarter for that starts in May. And I looked at it and I went, oh, I wrote this 2.5 years ago. It doesn't ring the same way that Love, Ships, and Sea Serpents does. I've grown as a writer. I've improved as a writer. So I rewrote that whole book. I didn't have to rewrite all of it, but I had to rewrite massive chunks of it to get it up to the same point that Love, Ships, and Sea Serpents was. And I'm doing the same thing with the next book, with book 2 in that trilogy and with book 3 in that trilogy, because they need to be brought up to where I am as a writer now. But having all of those years of experience of writing stories, you don't have to take 7 to 10 years to do it. You just need to get words out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I honestly believe that if you can get a lot of stories out and get really good at understanding what makes story structure work, spending time learning story structure, that if you have really good beta readers and if you invest the little bit of money that goes into having a good AI that can actually break down your story, something like AutoCrit or something like paying for a month of Claude so that Claude will run a full story analysis, or a month of ChatGPT so ChatGPT will run a full story analysis.
ProWriting Aid now has it too.
Yes, and ProWriting, I just got the email this morning that my account will now let me try. So I'm excited to try. But like having that, I honestly believe that the need for a human developmental editor isn't the be all end all for whether or not you're going to be able to publish. I don't use a human developmental editor. I have beta readers who are Fictionary certified editors. I don't ask them to do a whole edit of it. I ask them to just beta read it and tell me where they see plot holes. But ChatGPT and Claude caught most of my plot holes for the book that comes out in April. I've got Love, Dryads, and Murder coming out in April, which if you watch Shannon's channel, she did Charmed Chats in February of 2024, and she gave me a writing prompt, and we did a sprint for a writing prompt. Love, Dryads, and Murder is from that writing prompt.
Oh my goodness, that's so awesome.
It is that prompt.
I love that.
So it's super fun and very much more on the stabby side of the spectrum and less on the cozy side, but super fun.
I love that.
But yeah, so I don't use a human developmental editor. I have brought good people around me that I trust, that I know understand story structure, and they are essentially my group editor along with AI tools that help me move forward in this. Because if you don't have the money to invest, then you have to be able to choose something that's going to push you forward. And for me, I've chosen AI.
I would ask you then, because I'm sure some of the listeners may be wondering this, is that, you know, if you're surrounding yourself with these people who are helping you out, what if you don't know anybody? How do you start that?
So that's where it gets kind of hard. I am a little bit extroverted. I'm a lot introverted, but I'm also a little bit extroverted enough that I'm not afraid to walk into a digital room. A real room is different. Having to actually look at people, that's harder. But I can walk into a digital room and start talking and start offering things that I have to give, things that I'm good at. So I can offer design feedback, and I can look at story structure and help people see genre and things like that. There are things that I understand that I'm always willing to put forward and offer. And when you can walk into a room or a digital room and build people up, it makes it so much easier to turn around and then say, are you interested in helping me? And sometimes you get the answer no. I've often gotten the answer, hey, I am swamped. I'm like, hey, that's great. And I still offer my help and give my help freely to those people, even if they aren't in a situation where they want to help or can't help. But when you're willing to give of yourself, people naturally want to give back. And you can't go into it saying, well, I'm going to help you, so you have to help me. That's not how it works. Karma doesn't like that. Like any religion, any belief system, universe, I don't care what you're doing, all of them say no.
Yeah, I think it's, and I had said before we started the recording that I've come across some of my own strategies with my new series. And I haven't done exactly what you did, where I've gone into digital rooms. I've just created relationships over the years with other writers and authors. And when I was going into writing this new series and knowing I was not going to be paying for an editor, I had my girlfriend from college, which we graduated in 2013. So it was a while ago. But she started self-publishing like 2015. And I remember she had like this arrangement with another girl that we graduated with, where they were editing each other's books. And she had gotten out of writing when I was just getting in because she had a baby. So she took some time off to spend with baby and family. And she was just coming back and she was like, hey, do you want to do this? I was like, I was just about to ask you if you want to do this. So just that, but then also being in the community, like on YouTube, because there's a writing duo, only one half of it's on YouTube, this Martin Lejeune. We've had him on the podcast along with Malcolm Bradley, who's his writing partner. We interviewed both of them in the first season of the podcast. And Malcolm does editing and he edits their books. And Martin and I, we talk all the time, and it's usually about like book marketing. Hey, I'm trying this. I'm doing this ad over here. This is what worked for this ad. So we always talk book marketing stuff. And he was lamenting, and we also do say like how we're doing with our writing. Like, hey, I wrote 7,000 words today. That's what he says. So I'm like, yay. But and he's an avid outliner. He'll show me his outlines. It's in a spread Excel sheet. But anyways, so for their second book in their series, he was telling me, oh, I'm so worried. The book is pre-ordered. It's going out end of January, but Malcolm just got sick. He can't edit it. And I had just set up this deal with my girlfriend, right? So I was like, I have a proposition or a proposal. I was like, if I edit your guys' book, would Malcolm edit my books? You know? And so, yeah. And Malcolm liked my edit so well that we've stayed on. So I've done all of their books starting from the second book, and they're about to get their fifth book out. And they've done both of my books. Well, I say they, but Malcolm's the editor. So he's the one that does it. So that was just getting into the community, and it's all online. I'm kind of like you, online, a lot easier.
Yes.
So, and what I would say is I've talked about this what I call it trading kind. And I've talked about it like on my YouTube channel before. So like some of my audience, most of them are writers, they are aware of it. Well, my social media person that I set up for my Kickstarter that's going on right now, she fell out 2 weeks before we were supposed to start because she got sick. And I thought, you know what? I was like, someone in the community, so Devin, she's part of the Authorship Writing Conference. She had mentioned something about doing social media for my book when it launches, if I will edit a book of hers later. Now, see, and I should state that I have some editing experience because I ran my own business as a writing coach. Where most of my projects were editing. And then I was also a teacher at college English and literature. So I spent many years doing papers and grading. And so I'm good at like the typo proofreading stuff. Otherwise, I think story structure comes naturally to us if we've been doing a lot of writing and reading. So I said, hey, if you do my social media for my Kickstarter, is there something else I could do for you? I'm paying for her to go. And this wasn't the exact deal that we made. She was like, you just edit my book later. I'm like, no, I need to do something now. I don't want it later. So I'm paying for her to go through a course for 3 months about social media, doing social media stuff. So so hopefully that will do well. It's only $37 a month. So it's not like really expensive. Paying $37 a month, what's this, just over $100. And I know with the social media person, I had talked to her a year ago and it was going to be close to $200. So I'm pretty much paying the same. So
that's fantastic. I love that because you're also building someone else. So like you're getting what you need, but in exchange for getting what you need, you're building Devin up. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah. Well, and it worked out because she said that, and so when I said I need to do something now, and she was like, oh, well, you know what, just be my like pro bono basically. Cause she's like, I want to be a social media manager. You're my first client. I'm like, I still feel like I need to do something. So
you're amazing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. All right. Let's see for next question. How can authors effectively, okay, sorry, I thought I missed this question. How can authors effectively utilize free or low cost tools for editing and formatting their manuscripts? So you talked about the editing part already, but what about the formatting?
So for formatting, there are a few options. If you're okay with it not being super pretty and you just want it formatted, Draft to Digital will format for you and they will do it for free. Now, if you want all of the pretty stuff in there, there's a couple things you can do. AutoCrit does format books. That's part of their software bundle. And if you think you can do it quickly, you can pay for a month of AutoCrit and then back out. That is an option, is you can pay for a month and then cancel your subscription. I always suggest when you're doing a shoestring budget, if you don't think you're going to be using the tool at least daily or like multiple months out of a year, don't pay for a lifetime access to a tool or even a year access to a tool. Pay for the month, do as much as you can in that month and try and get everything done so that you can cancel it afterwards. So that would be the next thing. And then I'm hoping that by the time this airs, a lot of the issues have been fixed. Atticus is only $150. It's $147 US right now, I think. And it does a good job. They ran an update and it's been a little weird lately.
There's actually a workaround for that update. So there's a way to make it go back to the original version because I was having troubles with it too. Mm-hmm. And I've gone back to the original version and now no issues. And because I'm doing everything for my Kickstarter right now. If you need the instructions for that, someone sent it to me. I was complaining about it. Someone sent me the instructions, so I can send them to you.
That would be awesome. Because I've been like, we might not use this again for a little bit. We might let them figure out what's going on. Because that is an investment I made. I made an investment in Atticus to make things because I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm now formatting books consistently. Yeah. The nice thing is that if you do choose to get something like Atticus or Vellum and make that an investment, you now all of a sudden have another trading chip.
Yes.
Because now you can say, hey, I have figured out how to use this software. I own this software. I can format your book. Can you do X?
Trade in kind.
And trade in kind. And so it helps with that too. So when it comes to formatting, that's the process is you can go free and you can get just a really simple formatting with really it'll do drop caps for you. Draft to Digital will do drop caps. They have like 5 different images you can choose from to go underneath your chapter header. And that's about it. Like that's what it does, but it does it, and it does it for free. And then as you start moving up and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I need it to look pretty. Now you can look into something like, okay, well, let's do 1 month of autocrit and just use the formatting. Or I'm going to make this an investment and I'm going to buy Atticus, or I'm going to buy Vellum. And now I've got another trading chip so that I can come to someone and say, hey, I can format your book. I can make it beautiful. I can make it pretty. I've got the software to do it. I really need you to edit my book, or I really need you to design my cover, whatever it is.
And I haven't used Vellum because I have Windows. So they only have like a cloud-based version for Vellum, and it's a monthly fee. And I was like, I'm not paying a monthly fee.
Yep.
So that's why I went with Atticus. And what I really love, and I did never use Draft to Digital. I tried it out, but I was using Calibra, however you want to say that. But you have to know a little bit about coding, because you can upload your book to it, but if it doesn't look right, if you don't know how to fix the coding, you can't get it to look right. And I was spending a lot of time doing that. And that's what I did for my first 3 books. It was free. It was free to do Calibra. I've also heard Readsy has a free formatting program too. It's right there on the website.
I didn't know that.
I've heard it's very similar to Draft to Digital. So like the same kind of like limitations, but same kind of prettyfying stuff that it can do. But I don't know. I've never used that. I've used the Draft to Digital one.
And I use the Draft to Digital one for all of my ebooks, because formatting in ebooks doesn't always transfer very well.
No.
I've opened it in multiple different readers. And when you have pretty formatting, there are a lot of readers that just don't know how to handle it, and they mess everything up, and your drop caps get moved and things like that. And so I personally think if you're just doing ebooks, don't move the pretty formatting into your ebook. Just do a straight regular format, the easy Draft to Digital format. I don't even do drop caps because it doesn't handle it well. I do Draft to Digital for all of my ebook formatting and keep it really simple.
Yeah, because I do my ebook through Atticus, but I've had one review where they said the formatting was weird, and I've looked at the copy and I was like, it looks right to me, so I don't know what they were looking at, but maybe it was something like that.
Yeah, different readers will open it differently. So I'm a wide author, and so I actually downloaded my book on all the platforms and opened it up to see what it looks like. And so like Google Play will often shift formatting around. Kobo shifted my formatting. Amazon didn't. And there was another one, I can't remember. Oh, Barnes & Noble didn't. Barnes & Noble didn't shift my formatting. And I opened a whole bunch of other ones, and it was a toss-up as to whether or not the formatting landed correctly or not.
That's good. I need to look into that and see what it is, because I don't know. I don't remember where I saw that review, but I remember thinking like, what went wrong? I don't know, because I'm looking at it and it looks good to me, but yeah. And what I was going to say about with Atticus, in which I think you have this in Vellum, is when you say you have more options, you can put like images in there and stuff, which you can't do with Draft to Digital. But if you're doing just ebooks, you may not have images anyways. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, with Draft to Digital, it is just the very bare minimum, but I found that bare minimum opens perfectly in everything. Regardless of the reader, regardless of the app, it opens beautifully, and it's an easy read, and it doesn't distract your reader.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had issues with transferring from Atticus to Draft to Digital, because I'm wide. So I'll take my EPUB from Atticus and try to upload to Draft to Digital, and it kicks it back about 50% of the time. And it's on the coding side. I can go in there and fix it on the coding side. I put it into Calibra and fix the coding, but I'm like, I don't know how you fix that in Atticus. And I think it's because of the prettyfying stuff that I do. So there's a lesson. I need to do something with that. So yes, thank you. I learned something new. All right. So what advice do you have for authors who want to create a professional looking book cover, but on a limited budget?
So my first thing is that you want to look at what is popular in your genre and find things that stand out to you. Find covers that kind of match what your story, the experience your story gives. That's why I tell people is that your book cover should never tell the reader what your story is about. Your book cover should tell the reader what experience they're going to get. And then after you've done that, your next best option is, if you have a design background, and if you're right now, it makes me really sad because I'm an illustrator, but photo manipulated covers are what's hot right now. It makes me so sad. Even the ones that you look at and you think, I think that's illustrated. No, it's not. It's made in Photoshop. It's not drawn. So it makes me sad because I wish that the trend had shifted. It looked like it might, and that was what my first Love Ships and Sea Serpents cover was I was hoping the trend was going to follow the way it looked like it was going. It didn't. But if you're good in Photoshop, then you can start creating your cover with that information and matching it. If you're not, if you have zero design background, you're going to get all of your comp titles together and all of the covers that match the experience your book gives. And then you're going to go to getcovers.com. You cannot get a better cover for the price. For $35, you get one print version. So they'll do one distributor. So they'll do KDP or they'll do Barnes & Noble, whoever you pick. For $5 more, they'll put another one on there. And for like every $5 will get you another kind. And then you get an ebook cover and it does a mock-up of what the print book would look like. But they will go through and they'll create the cover. You have to know what you're looking for. I actually have a video I'm in the process of creating right now, and it should come out in the next month. It should either already be out or about to come out. And it's been me working with Get Covers because I have leveled up a little bit, so to speak, in that I can now afford to put money in instead of time in a little bit more. And Get Covers was that next step because, like I said, drawing that first cover took me over 80 hours. And then the market shifted. And now the kind of covers I thought were going to be popular aren't. And so I hate Photoshop. It was like that one class in design school that I was like, oh, I hate photo manipulation. Can I just go back to drawing, please?
I use GIMP, which is poor man's version of Photoshop.
Yeah, and that's what I use right now too. I don't pay for Adobe Suite anymore. I did it when I was working. I don't do it now. Working in graphic design, I don't do it now. I use all of the open source groups and I throw kickbacks to them because I like them better. I would rather donate to GIMP's continued improvement. And so I know how to use the program, but I dislike using the program. And for $35, Get Covers will use the program for me.
Yes. And they do it quickly too.
Yeah, they do. They have a really good turnaround time.
It's like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. And I love my new covers, and they will work with you on creating a cohesive system for series as well. Mm-hmm. So they did the cover for Love, Dryads, and Murder. And if you look at that cover and then you look at the cover for Love, Ships, and Sea Serpents, you can see a lot of similarities in how they're put together, but there's also a lot of differences too that distinguish the two series. And then Love, Mystique, and Mermaids, you look at that and you can immediately tell, oh, this is connected to Love, Ships, and Sea Serpents because it repeats certain elements. And all of those covers got done, like Love and a Bit of Disorder got a new cover as well, because I also drew the first cover for that. And that one also, the new cover for that one has its own set feel, but it matches all of the other covers that they've been making for me as well and sets it apart as a standalone, because it is my only standalone. Everything else that I've been writing is a series. So that's where I'd say people start. If you don't want to work with a designer, your next best bet is getting a pre-made cover. And those are anywhere in the gambit of price tag. I've seen pre-mades at $50. I've seen pre-mades at $300. So a pre-made cover is going to work really well. But you might have to dig to find the right one. Get Covers, the company that owns them, Miblart, they also have a pre-made site. It's called Get Pre-Mades. And those can be anywhere from the low $30 to $50 range all the way up to the $150, $200 range.
Yeah, I sometimes go along that I look at the pre-mades on different people's websites. Even my cover designer, she has pre-mades too. So I look at all of them, but sometimes all it really does is like inspire stories for me. It doesn't like fit any of the stories I have. So
I know a lot of authors that's how they decide what they're writing.
Yeah.
Is that they look for the cover that speaks to them. And when they find the cover that speaks to them, they're like, that's it. And they write the story off of the cover.
Story. Yeah. I think it was DL Tillery. We had her on here in her author interview, because she's been on here a few times. Her author interview, I think she mentioned she collects covers because she sees one and really likes it. She collects it. So then she goes over the story later. And I'm like, wow, I don't know if I could do that. I already have too many stories. I collect all these covers and never do anything with them.
Right. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay. How can authors take advantage of free platforms and services to distribute their books?
So I think Draft to Digital is awesome.
Yeah.
I think they're fantastic. If you really want to get into the nitty gritty of like wide and all of that, then there's certain groups out of Draft to Digital that you're going to go direct to instead of going through them, yada, yada, yada. And we can get into that another day. But for specifically getting everything's set up so that you can go through whatever platform you want. I think that Draft to Digital is the best option, and they are free. They don't take a cut at the start. The cut that they're going to take is going to be taking a small percentage off of whatever sales you make. And I'd rather split royalties with them than have to pay up front to put something up. I will mention another tool that I just got onto that I think is fantastic. This is called Curios.
Curios. I know, I was going to ask you about it.
And I love Curios. It is your gateway to direct sales. So if someone says to you, do direct sales, and you say, I don't want to touch Shopify with a 20-foot pole, because I looked at that and I was like, maybe someday, maybe when I have 10 to 20 books out, I will hire somebody to integrate Shopify into my website and set it up and figure it out. What's wonderful about Curios, so Shopify has a monthly fee that you pay for them to be able to function. Curios does not. And Curios will also operate as your merchant of record, which makes taxes so much easier, because I'm a big fan of that. But Curios is a way to set up a direct store. It doesn't cost you anything to upload your materials. It doesn't cost you anything to sell through them. And then they give you 100% of the profit that you make. So if you sell a book for $5, you get $5. The reader, when they purchase your book, and you'll want to explain this to your readers if you choose to go through Curios, they're going to pay a small fee for the purchasing. So they'll cover the credit card fee, they'll cover Curios's fees. So that $5 book probably comes out closer to like $5.75 in that range, because they're also going to cover their sales tax. So depending on where they live, that might be higher, that might be lower. It might not exist because there are places in the union that don't have sales tax. So they're going to pay a little bit more, and you'll want to look into that. I know certain groups have, certain distributors have rules about, well, you can't price higher or lower than us. Which I have feelings about that. But I think Curios is great. I've loved it. I have loved the reaction that my readers have had when I've explained to them, hey, this is what it is. This is a way so that instead of your money going to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google, whatever distributor you're buying through Kobo, instead of a portion of it, sometimes almost half, going to them, I get all of it. You support me 100% when you buy from them. And my readers have loved that and really latched onto it. So if you're looking for a way to go direct and have direct sales without the expense and the headache of trying to set up PayHip or Shopify or Fourth Wall or whatever the more recent thing is right now, Curios is an awesome option.
So, and I do have two thoughts about that when it comes to the pricing. You could price your book lower so that when they pay for it, it comes out to the same price as what they pay on retailer websites. But that does go to like what you said, that the retailer websites are all, most of them have in the term service that the book is supposed to be the same everywhere. And what you could do with that is that what you sell direct, and this would make it more special, or I don't know if that's the right word, is that when they buy from you direct, they get this ebook that they can get from retailer platforms, except it has an extra image in it or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's something special.
It's a bit of a different book than what you would find on retailer platforms. But basically, you would have to have an ISBN though, because if it's a different book, you'd have to have a different ISBN.
Well, and the nice thing about Curios is that because they are a digital media seller, they're not actually ebook specific. They started out in the music industry, and they helped musicians first, and then they started helping artists. And us as authors, we're actually the third creative group they're reaching out to. One of the cool things about it is that the ISBN is still in your book, but they're not listing it on their site. So when you upload the book, you're just uploading a product and saying it's an ebook, but Amazon can't scrape that site for your ISBN number.
Good. So then you can just make that ebook something. So then if you did want to say, okay, I sell it $4.99 on Amazon, you're going to pay $5 plus some change here on this site, but you're also going to get the ebook with additional digital photos or whatever, something that makes it unique that they wouldn't get anywhere else. So that could account for the higher price, or it could account for why you're pricing it lower on that site, but still making the same amount of money.
Exactly. And one of the other cool things is they're bringing in, slowly but surely, they're bringing in physical goods. So you will ultimately be able to sell like your signed hardbacks.
Nice.
They're trying to integrate with some of the print on demand groups, specifically like BookFunnel, which I'm really excited about because it means like what I make on my Kickstarter can ultimately be sold through Curios too, which will be super fun. And then you can sell digital things. So if you go onto my Curios shop right now, you will be able to buy digital wallpapers for Love and a Bit of Disorder. And you can buy printable bookmarks for Love and a Bit of Disorder. And it's just a downloaded item that you can then print off, and you can have a bookmark that has a funny quote from Love and a Bit of Disorder. Like, you can do things that normally you couldn't. In Love Ships and Sea Serpents and Love Mystique and Mermaids, I have a dice game that I invented, and that's going to be offered in my Kickstarter. Yeah. But as soon as digital products roll out, I can offer that dice game through Curios. Whereas normally that's something I could only do through Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. But now you could buy the dice game.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I in my first book of my series, they're playing cards, but I don't go into a lot of detail. And there's no card playing in my second book, but I've always known that I was going to do something with these cards. And in the third book, there's a lot of playing cards, and they even mention what kind of deck it is and stuff like that. So I'm like, because it's, I'm thinking like a regular deck of cards, right? You have 4 kings, 4 queens. We'll have 4 brothers who have 4 queens. So they're all going to be on the cards and stuff. And yeah,
it's awesome.
It's going to be for a Kickstarter, but it's not this one. It's not going to be for the next one. It's going to be for one that's in between. But yeah, I love how you could do that. Yeah. But what I would say is, I don't know, Elaine, if you're planning to do other Kickstarters.
I am.
Okay. So if it's in the same series, you might want to like hold on to some of your digital products and until the series is done and you're done with it on Kickstarter. So like right now I'm running my Kickstarter. I've already ran one. This is the next one in the series. And what I'm saying, I'm selling the previous book, but with the digital artwork, because I had wallpaper that was made and I put it in the book, and I'm not selling that anywhere. I was like, you can only get it here. And I have people who are new to my Kickstarter who are getting the first book now because that artwork they're not going to get anywhere else, that book with the artwork in it.
Right.
So.
Well, and the new cover for Love Ships and Sea Serpents, it's not live right now. So you can see it on like my social media and stuff, and you can see it at the Kickstarter, but that new cover for Love Ships and Sea Serpents is going to Kickstarter backers first. And so all of the Kickstarter backers get Love Ships and Sea Serpents new cover first. Yeah. And then after that, it'll go to my Curios shop, and then it will slowly go to all of the other retailers. But those are the first 2 places that it's going to go. Same with Love, Mystique, and Mermaids. Everybody that backs the Kickstarter gets that first, then Curios gets it, and then it'll go to everywhere else.
Yeah. So, and that's another strategy, is that it first goes to Kickstarter. I just like to be able to say that there's certain things that you can't get anywhere else except for in my Kickstarters until I complete the series. When the series is completed, then it's all going to be available on my website or wherever I'm selling at. So I'm on PayHip right now, but I don't spend enough time doing it. I get a few sales, but I don't spend enough time over there fixing it, making it look good. And I actually went to a webinar yesterday about Curios. So I was learning about it.
I was there too. It was good.
Oh, you were there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was doing my sprints, so I had to duck out for like 20 minutes to finish up my sprints. But yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to the names. But okay, are there any potential pitfalls to be aware of when using free resources, and how can they be mitigated?
So the hardest thing with free resources is that they will often, there's a thing called freemium, where there's a free version and then there's the paid version. And freemium is notorious for taking the tools you actually need and putting them behind a paywall. So just being aware of that. Also being aware that if something is free, you are the product. And so being cautious of, okay, who am I giving my information to? I think that for some things like Pro Writing Aid, I think the free version is wonderful. There's a lot of cool stuff behind the paid version. And I did buy the Black Friday lifetime access. That was one of my first investments that I made after my ISBNs. And so there's a lot of cool stuff on the back end of that. But I used the free version for a very long time, and I don't think it made that much of a difference. So just being aware that some of the freemium stuff, you're not actually going to get what you need. And that if it is free, you are the product. So if you're concerned about AI using your words in training or anything like that, be aware that if you aren't paying for it, then whatever you type into it is going to be used as data. Not necessarily that they're going to tell it, like someone isn't going to go and say that's paying for ChatGPT, write me a book about a dryad, and it's going to spit out the book I put in to get edited. It's not going to do that. But me putting in my book to have ChatGPT help me find the plot holes, find those inconsistencies, it is going to build off of that and say, okay, this is how the writing was with this user, and learn off of that. And it's going to build off of that. So it is going to ultimately make whatever person who jumps in and says, hey, write me a book about a dryad, it's going to make their book potentially better because it's seen my story structure and analyzed it and learned from it and built on it. Yeah. So being aware that if you are not paying for something, then you are the product. Now, some things that are free in good faith. So you just need a draft to digital account to format your book for free. You don't have to publish through them. And that is done in good faith. They do that with the hope that, oh, well, I already have an account and I've already formatted the book. I'm leaving money on the table. I might as well try to publish it through these other retailers. I'm going direct to Amazon, but they can have the other ones. That's not a big deal. And that's how they make their money. It's like the samples that you can get at warehouse stores where they're like, hey, we are knowingly giving you some product in the hopes that you will try the product and say, oh, this is actually really good, and go down the aisle and go pick it up and put it in your cart. It's the same concept. And then also be aware of scams. Get really, really good at understanding scam language, at recognizing it, and only give your information out to companies that you have vetted, that you can find multiple third parties that say, oh, yes, I have used them and it was fine and it worked out well. Because you're going to find a lot of people love to prey on authors, because unfortunately there are a lot of authors who are not tech savvy. And so the scammers, they look for those groups. They look for the groups of people that they know aren't tech savvy. And then they will slowly try to work their way in so that they can make your life miserable.
And you also have the Alliance of Independent Authors. It's an organization. Now, they do have memberships, but I believe you can access their Beware list. So they have a list where you can see people that have, or companies that have been vetted already through them. And they give you different levels. It's not like, like you might have the red and that you don't go with them. And some are like, we don't know enough about this company to be able to say one way or the other. And then there's some that have the green. So you know that they're good.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'd also like to say what you said about the freemium and putting your, especially if you're putting your book out there into different places, they're going to use it. That doesn't mean that if you pay for it, it's not going to also use it. I would just say whatever program you're using, read the terms of service, because I think with ChatGPT, the pro plan, it doesn't use your information. But if you're lower than that, it could, I think.
Yes, I think you're right. I think that is how it is. And then it's just where is your line? My line is at a different place than someone else's line because I come from the tech industry. I've been watching AI come up and develop and work for over a decade because I've been designing logos for people in this sphere. So it's not scary to me. I've been watching it for ages. So it doesn't bother me, but I know for a lot of people it is terrifying and it is scary, and those are a lot of emotions.
Yeah. I mean, AI has been part of our world for quite a while. It just the term was not used.
Yeah.
So I think was it our first season we had an author on, second season? She talked about DeepL, which is a website where you can, have your book, you put your book into it and it translates it. Mm-hmm. And many, many authors have been using this for years. And, and they all suggest you go get an editor, which she translated it into her natural language, but then her mother also speaks it better. So then her mother also went through her book. It was French, but she had published her book in English to start with. And, so you want to send it through an editor. And there was a new company that came up end of last year, does the same thing, but they advertise it as AI, and it got a lot of flack. And I'm like, it's not doing anything different than DeepL, and DeepL has been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
So, but DeepL didn't use the language of AI because that wasn't the buzzword. So now it's a buzzword. So I would just say it's been out there for a while, and it just depends on how you want to use it. I don't use it to come up with my book. I don't say, hey, write me a book about pirates and just let it spit out a book and I use it. I don't do that. Writing is part of me, so I couldn't do that part. There are some who do. I'm not knocking it if those are what people want to do. I don't know that those would be particularly great books if you're not editing it. Same thing with translation services, but
I agree with you. Writing for me is fun. Yes. I don't want to take that away. I don't want to give that to the AI. I would rather have the AI AI tell me, hey, your brain jumped somewhere here,
the
and there's this whole blank section. Maybe you fix it.
I like using it as my brainstorming buddy. And, it's kind of like intuitive writers. This is what Becca Syme has said with intuitive writers, is that typically we know what we want. We just can't access the information. Mm-hmm. And so I used to use my husband like this. I'd say, I'm having this trouble with this and this and this. And he'd give me an idea. No, that's not right. And then what about that? No, that's not right. And he would like, I don't know what good I am, until I heard Becca Syme said, well, intuitive writers, they know what it is. They're just trying to get to it. And by discarding ideas, they're able to access what they're actually wanting from their subconscious. So when I told him that information, he was like, oh, that makes so much sense. So I use the AI the same way. I'm like, I need some ideas, some brainstorming ideas for this, this, and this, and this. And I'll give me ideas. And I'm discarding. And now I've got it. Now I know what I'm going to do. So I don't have to make my husband feel bad anymore.
I love that.
All right. So you've talked about how you've spent some money upfront with your ISBNs. And I do want to ask you about how that could lead to better returns in the long run and what else could happen with that. But I am curious. So why did you decide to buy your own ISBNs?
So I am a very jealous person. I want to know if I own something, I own it, and that it is mine. And that probably has a lot to do with like my autism and my OCD and my ADHD, of like wanting to know that if something is mine, it is mine, and I have full control over it. And I didn't love the idea of every platform being able to have access to my metadata as this is our ISBN for our thing. And so technically your metadata is ours to an extent. I didn't like that. And so I actually went and took a seasonal job and worked that seasonal job for 6 weeks so that I would have the money to buy the 100 pack of ISBNs, because I wanted to make sure that it was my book entirely. I owned everything with it, and nobody else had access to it, or had the ability to change it, or had the ability to say anything about it. It's part of why I didn't pursue traditional publishing, was because it bothered me greatly that some agent or some editor could say, actually, this would be a lot better if you did this. And if you don't do this, we won't publish it. Yeah. I didn't want that. I thought it
becomes their IP, not yours.
Exactly. And so that was why I chose to do that. And the money was enough that I was able to buy that 100 pack of ISBNs. And I bought the Black Friday lifetime sale of Pro Writing It. And that was all it was for. That was all it was.
You invested in. Now you've gotten Fictionary since then. I don't know if you still have Fictionary, but you did some videos on it.
Yeah. So I did. I saved up birthday money. And I bought a year of Fictionary, and it was fantastic. I honestly think that if you spend enough time in Fictionary, it becomes intuitive. And so I'm not going to renew it again, just because I've gotten to the point now where I understand it. And then I had a family member who said, I really want to invest in your writing. What can I do? And so I had them buy me the lifetime membership to AutoCrit at Author Nation last year. And so, so I've been very fortunate in that I've had people who have wanted to invest in me. And so they've helped me level up a little bit and get me closer to certain things. And having AutoCrit's story analyzer and their backwards blueprint has also been really helpful too. And I think almost just as helpful as Fictionary, definitely a different style and a different purpose behind it, but very, very helpful.
I've used both. I found that it had some issues though with my book, and I don't know if it's because it was really, really long and I had a lot of different things that happened. Because I even put my novella in there, and it's dual point of view, and it's never recognized my second point of view character. It said he was a side character. I'm like, no, he's not. He's the love interest.
Mine did that too. Because so with Love, Dryads, and Murder, I started it and I just wrote it really fast and had fun with it because I wrote it for my newsletter. And it ended up at just over 17,000 words. I'm adding in a ton because I'm an underwriter and I don't put in any scenery, and I don't. And so this is going to finish out at about probably 40 to 45,000 words, depending on what my betas get back to me. And it definitely, like that 17,000 words, it didn't understand that I had two main characters. What I liked about it, though, was not the whole analyzer. I liked the chapter by chapter analyzer. Yeah. That one I think works really well. But you're right. When I put in the whole story and said, hey, analyze the whole thing, I did get a whole bunch of word salad and hallucination and all of the things that AI is
Even chapter by
stereotyped
chapter,
with.
though, it had issues with it. I don't know why. And it made the antagonist like the love interest. And I'm like, but he's not the love interest. It's so I was really confused. It did better on my novel, but it did kind of like lose the thread, even chapter by chapter. And it does a good job of like saying, okay, here's a potential plot hole, but it doesn't really understand sometimes when you're setting something up for the story to happen later. It doesn't understand that part. I mean, it's AI, like everything, it's going to get better, it's learning. So I do appreciate it. And I do like the backwards blueprint because I'm a discovery writer. I do a reverse outline, which is an outline after my story is done. And now I get to use the backwards blueprint.
Which is so nice to have it say, oh, hey, here's where everything happens. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
And you can do that.
I don't have to do it.
Right. And you could do it too by genre. Now they don't have fantasy romance in there yet, but they have fantasy and they have romance.
And they have paranormal romance. It labeled my book as which is not the same, but I think that's more so people not knowing genre differences from the reader's perspective. It makes me laugh because people will get on and they're like, well, genre is just a marketing thing. And I'm like, yes, but have you talked to readers recently? Because they are picky and they have opinions and I'm listening to those opinions.
Yep, definitely. All right. So what are some common mistakes authors make when trying to self-publish on a tight budget?
The fear of missing out. They spend money on things that don't matter because they're so scared that they won't spend money on the right thing. And so they will make impulse decisions. One thing that I wish I had done better at the start, because I did it a little bit, but I wish I'd done better at making a plan of saying, these are the only things I will spend money on.
Have you done a video like that? Like if I could go back, here are the only things I would spend money on.
I did a little bit. I did a video of everything I spent money on in 2023. And I was like, okay, well, this was not worth it. This was not worth it. This was not worth it. So I did do that. I do have plans to do a video that is, now that I'm further along, and especially now that I've got multiple books done and I'm going to have a Kickstarter done in the next little bit, doing another video that says, okay, in the long run, here's actually what matters, as opposed to this was 2023 and this was what I wasted money on. Because there were like writing books that I bought that with personal money, thinking, oh, well, this is actually going to be really helpful. And it was not. And so that kind of thing of sitting down and doing a better job of saying, this is the absolute bare minimum that I have to put money into. And everything after that is not important.
Yeah. And I would say I buy writing and craft books and marketing books all the time. And it's not something I think about like, oh, this is going to help me get so much better. I think it's the Clifton strengths. Yeah. So I'm input and learner in my top 5. So
you're having fun.
Yes, I'm having fun reading all of this stuff. So yeah, I love reading new things. I was just pulling out books like, what can I do next? What do I want to read next? I still want to read this, Fire the Haters. So, it's about people who don't like your work, basically, right? People who are not really, not that they don't like your work, but they're
not your people.
They're not your people, right? And they may not even read your work, but they just heard or whatever, or they don't like the way you look, whatever. The Fire the Haters. Yeah. So I want to get into reading that next. This is the other one. Sorry, I was just showing on screen is the book Fire the Haters by Jillian Johnsrud, I think is what it is.
Sure.
I forgot we do have some audio listeners. And then the other one I want to read is Fight Like a Girl. So fight scenes for female characters.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's I don't know how you say the first name. It's it's Aiki Flintheart. But yeah, these are like 2 books I just recently got. I'm like, I want to read these. But what I would say, I don't know if we were going to touch on this, but when you're looking at fixing or not fixing, but engaging more in your craft and learning what you can, there are so many free webinars out there.
Yes.
That you can get what you need from it. I spent the first 2 years of my author career going to all these free things. And by the time I got down to the second year, I was like, I am just hearing the same stuff over and over again. But it's good to get out there and get, and be aware that most free webinars, they're selling you something at the end. So
yes. They all have the same selling tactics.
Yes. Yeah. So you don't have to buy. I mean, it depends on what your personality type is. I'm good not spending money. I'm like, yep, I don't need that. Thank you.
Yep.
I've always been like that with money. So,
Well, there's so many podcasts out there that are helpful, and so many, like, there's so much out there that will give you the craft information that you need. That I've yet to find paid craft information that made a huge difference, with the one exception being Secrets to Editing Success by the founder of Fictionary, Christina Stanley, and her co-writer, Lucy Cook. That was the only book that I bought that I was like, oh, I actually have a pathway forward and action steps and things that I'm going to do with this. Every other craft book was, oh, that's really good information. And that might be partially being a discovery writer. A lot of it just percolates in the back of my head and it slowly comes out. But, but I think a big part of it is that there's so much out there that you can learn through webinars, through free things. If you're struggling on writing blurbs, I highly, highly, highly suggest Jessie Kniff. She's an Australian, and she has a free blurb cheat sheet for signing up to her newsletter. Her newsletter is one of the only author-oriented newsletters I still read, because I signed up for so many of them when I first started this. And all of the information in her newsletters is fantastic. Even when she's selling to you, she is giving you information to help make sure that your blurb is better for free. And I've bought her course, Book Blurb Magic, and that was one of the things I invested in. And that one was a very good investment because it upped my blurb writing. And I actually, one of the things I trade is I help edit people's blurbs and help them see, because I've not read their book. And so when I go through and I edit their blurb and hand it back to them, they look at it and they go, oh, this isn't what my story's about at all. I go, well, there you go. Now you know you need to change the blurb because this is what I got from your blurb. And it makes a huge difference. So there's so many options out there for you to get free resources that you don't have to just dump money into. And it goes back to not feeling that FOMO, not feeling like you're missing out of, oh no, this is going to make or break my career. No, it's not. It really isn't.
Yeah. And you just said FOMO. So just anyone's not aware what that is. She did say it earlier, but we haven't connected the two. So FOMO is the fear of missing out. And I love JOMO, which I've heard a few times, which is the joy of missing out.
I love that too.
Yes. But I just heard about Kindlepreneur. So Kindlepreneur, they have a YouTube channel. It was made by Dave Chesson. He's no longer doing the YouTube channel, still with this company, but he's not doing the videos anymore. But he also has a website where he does blog posts and whatnot. And I actually learned a lot for getting reviews, like ways to get more reviews on your books. He's got one blog post on it. But he has on his website, and like I said, I've not tried this. I just heard about it last week, but it uses AI, but you plug in the information about your book and it helps you create your book description.
Oh, very cool.
So yeah, so that's another way. He had something similar a couple of years ago, but it wasn't very good. But I heard that they've done a huge update and changed it and got it better. Of course, AI is getting better, so of course it would get better over time. So so again, another way that you can get it for free. So, and it's free. So
that's awesome.
So can you share any success stories that highlight the potential of self-publishing without significant financial investment?
So I'm sure that you've heard of someone named Kevin Tumlinson. He started this way. He actually did a presentation at 20 books to 50K, and you can find it on their YouTube channel. And he talked about self-publishing on a shoestring budget. He talked about, I think he called it bootstrapping. I think that was the term he used. And he absolutely went through and told you how he started as a bootstrapper, that he had used AI to make his covers, that or he had traded for covers. And then when AI started kind of working, he started putting AI into them. He still puts AI into his covers. And then he talked about using reviews to help him edit. Essentially, he would get a review of a book and be like, oh, well, they didn't like that part. That's good to know. I should fix that the next time I write a book. He literally jumped into this with nothing. And Kevin Tumlinson is one of the most well-known names in self-publishing now. He has, I don't even know how big his backlog is. I know it's bigger than 20 books. It's huge. He's got tons of books. He's tried all of the different ways of getting through and publishing. He worked for Draft to Digital. He worked for...
I was going to say he was with Draft to Digital for a long time.
Yeah, and he worked for another company after Draft to Digital, and now he resurrected the Wordslinger podcast and is doing that now. Kevin Tumlinson is a very successful author, and he started with this method. He started with, I don't have the money, I don't have the few $1,000s for an editor. And so he used beta readers and his reviewers for his editor, which I think now we don't have to do that. I think the community is big enough now. You don't need to rely on your reviews to be your edits, but you have that ability to start where Kevin Tumlinson started and get to where Kevin Tumlinson is now. And that was a huge change for me, because when I started this process, I kind of thought I couldn't do it. After people started saying to me, you're going to need to have several $1,000s for editing and covers and all of this stuff. And then I watched the YouTube video of Kevin Tumlinson's presentation at 20 bucks to 50K. And I went, oh, I can do this. He gave me that permission, that it was a viable process.
Yes.
And I want other people to have that permission. I want other people to say, yes, I can do it. And if I can be someone that they can look to and say, oh, well, Elaine did it, so I can do it, then awesome.
I love that. Yeah. I didn't know that. I have heard about his bootstrapping method. I didn't know what that actually came from. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I'll have to look that up and find it. So, all right. So if you can only pass on one thing to aspiring self-published writers, what's your best publishing tip or trick?
So my best publishing tip or trick is to find community, and specifically find other authors who are writing what you're writing, or writing really close to what you're writing, that are just a little bit ahead of you. You don't want to go after the author who's making 6 figures when you haven't published a book yet. Find the author who's got 2 books out. If you've got 2 books out, find the author who's got 4 books out. Find the person who's just a little bit ahead of you. This is called networking up. In the corporate world, they call it networking up. When you choose your people that way, it makes a massive difference, because just a little bit ahead of you, those people are almost always willing to turn around and pull you forward, to give you the steps you need to be pulled forward. And that makes leaps and bounds in your professional career, whether it's in self-publishing or anything else. Finding that person who's just a little bit ahead of you, who's willing to invest a little bit of time because they were just there. If they've got 4 books out, they remember what it feels like to have 2 books out and still kind of figuring this whole thing out. If they've got 2 books out, they remember what it's like to not be published yet and trying to figure out how to publish. And so they'll turn around and pull you forward. And then you get to do the same thing. You get to turn around and look at the person who isn't published yet when you've got 2 books out, and pull them forward and continue passing that on. And that's how we climb this ladder. That's how we move forward in this career. At least that's how you do it, and be happy.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes you get completely blindsided by someone who's way far up, who turns around and helps you up too. Because that happened with me with Dale L. Roberts. So
yes, sometimes you find really great people.
Yeah, he just one day is like, hey, Shannon, get in touch with me. I'm like, did he talk to me? No. And I didn't do it. And a couple weeks later, Shannon, I told you to get in touch with me. I'm like, okay. And, now we have a good working relationship. So, he's been very, very great for the AuthorTube Writing Conference. And so it's a great person to have in the community to look up to and see what's working, what's not working. And again, like what you've said, sometimes it may not work for you, what someone else is doing. But it's always nice to see what it is other authors are doing, to see, and it may even like create ideas for you, which is like, I didn't come up with the idea of the Faded Stories story mail. That came from, I don't know how to say his last name, David Viragets. I met him at the Ream conference last year in May, and I didn't know that's what he was doing then. But since then, we've had, I've been in a class with him that Michael Evans brought him in and talked about his scare mail. So scare mail is actually very popular now. And he talked about the process and how he got into it and what his thought process was, and how they, like, both him and his wife had jobs. They quit so they could do scare mail full time. Because it was they made a lot of money that first year. So I was like, and I love the idea. I've always loved the idea of like choose your own adventure. It's not quite choose your own adventure, but you get to choose the character you want to follow. And each character has a love interest that has like a different trope. So like one's like enemies to lovers, another one's second chance romance. And so you could choose.
That's awesome.
So I really
That's fantastic.
So, but that I just, he obviously he's far ahead of me, and he writes horror, thriller. He writes thriller.
One of the two.
Yeah. And so I'm never going to write that, but he is far ahead, but he's enough that I can look at it and be like, okay, I want to do something like that.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, Elaine, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate you joining me and talking to all of us about publishing books on a shoestring budget. And before we wrap up, can you please tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and your books?
So you can find me at elainecanyon.com. There's links there to all of my books, to my curio shop, all of those places. Love, Ships, and Sea Serpents is free on all platforms, and so you can get that. Love and a Bit of Disorder is for sale on all platforms, but you can get it for free for signing up to my newsletter. Love, Dryads, and Murder should be out now, or about to be out, one of the two. And then my Kickstarter for Love, Mystique, and Mermaids starts on May 6th. I think it's the 6th. It starts this first week of May.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. So love all of us. So a bunch of us are doing Kickstarters now. So it's really great that we're all getting on there. Well, thank you so much to our listeners and viewers. On May 15th, we're going to be back with a book review episode. We are reading The Emotional Craft of Fiction, How to Write the Story Beneath the Surface by Donald Moss. And I'm looking forward to reading that. I actually bought this book like 2 years ago and I have yet to read it. So I'm looking forward to actually reading it. So that's going to be awesome. And so with that, we will wrap this special episode up on Shoestring Self-Publishing. And thank you for joining us, everyone. Bye. Thank you so much to our incredible listeners and viewers for joining us on our exploration of everything self-publishing. We hope you found our podcast to be a treasure trove of insights and inspiration. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform or thanks on our YouTube episodes. Don't forget, you can catch all of our past episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms. Keep writing, keep publishing, and we'll see you next time.